When equipping your fire apparatus for work, it's important to evaluate how well your crew will power its tools. With so many non proprietary battery options on the market, consider a platform and equipment that will have cross compatibility. SuperVac's battery fan and Command Light's tripod light can be powered by DeWalt, Milwaukee, Makita, or Hurst batteries. Spec your equipment at supervac.com or commandlight.com. The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Fire Store makes as a company is about you, the customer. The Fire Store wouldn't be where it is today without you, and the company doesn't take that lightly. It understands that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. The Fire Store's goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit thefirestore.com for everything but the truck and shop a family of brands that include Streamlight, MSA, Lion, FLIR, and more. Hi, Chris McClune here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of our webcast. You'll see there that we have a familiar face here with us today. We have Ricky Riley, President of Traditions Training and Apparatus Consultant. We've talked a lot in the past couple months, and Ricky actually did a webinar for us a few weeks ago regarding, we've talked a lot about apparatus specification. We've gotten into some challenges with ordering new trucks. We've gotten into how some of the lag times that we're experiencing with truck deliveries is impacting maintenance. Ricky, the webinar that he did for us was about building a truck to do work. And today, what I wanted to talk a little bit about with him is equipping that truck to do work. When I think of designing a truck, you know, just the overall design, the body, the cab, the whole thing. When I think about that, I think about we're building a truck. It's not a no frills truck, but it's a very, very purpose built truck that is not a parade piece. I guess you would want to say, you know, to use a term that sometimes gets a bad rap, but you know, it's not just for display. It's not to show off equipment that we're never going to use. It is a truck. You know, we're not buying the biggest possible pump that we can just in case we need it someday. We're looking at our local. We're building a truck that is designed to do the work that we need to do within our area. And so that's kind of where I come from when I think of designing a truck to do work. When we equip that truck, you know, I wanted to talk to Ricky just about some of his ideas about, you know, his I guess, wish list of items for that truck. You're going to see we're going to, before the end of the year, get into some of NFPA 1900, which is replacing NFPA 1901. And some of the differences in equipment requirements and things like that. So, Ricky, to get us started, could you talk about some of the considerations departments should have when they're equipping their new rig? You know, like, I mean, you know, we want to talk about the equipment itself that we're using, but we also want to talk about deployment. We want to talk about mounting and things like that. Just talk about some things that departments should consider when they get into that process.
I guess the biggest thing, Chris, is you know, what you're designing and what your community needs. So, I mean, for a lot of us, you know, obviously with me, Mark, you know, from the FDMY and Eddie Race, our apparatus is very specific. So, an engine is an engine, a truck's a truck, a rescue squad is a rescue squad, a rescue engine. So, you know, we're not having to do a lot of things with one unit. So, for our fire departments that have to do that, that requires them to be even more innovative than, you know, Mark, Eddie Rice, or myself. You know, where we're just trying to put all these eggs into one little basket to do engine company operations or truck company operations. Where, you know, if you're doing a rescue engine, you're doing a big pumper that can carry a lot of water, or a lot of truck that has, you know, gosh forbid, a tank and water. You know, I start breaking out in hives and sweat when we talk about putting tanks and pumps on ladder trucks. But, you know, that is a big thing that you have to consider. I mean, I think the engines that I design, you know, for my department, we've got those things dialed in, just like, Mark's got the FDMYs dialed in, but they work for us. So we can make them short. They're very specific around water delivery, water intake, getting the hose lines off. And we'll have some pictures later on to, help support that. But, so, we just got back from doing an HDR up at, our manufacturer that we use for our, making our rigs. And, the first thing we have to consider is that one, we'll stick with the HDR theme, is that, how big does the box have to be? So I want to take into account, what am I going to carry? And it's always the big pieces first. In Clearwater.
Just let me just interrupt you for just a second. An HDR, just so everybody knows, is a heavy duty rescue.
Gotcha. Thank you for correcting my lingo. So, because I can spew it off. But in Clearwater, we had this huge HDR, heavy duty rescue, and we wanted to be able to do simple shoring operations with it. With in my current department and a lot of departments around here, we don't. They have individual units for that. So we have to make a place for these huge sheets of plywood and boards and 2x4s. So now we have to have more through compartments, from side to side, rather than so a walk-in did not work for us, as opposed to a non-walk-in where you can get all these through compartments. You maximize your space. On that HDR down there, we had a 100-inch wide cab. Usually bodies are 96. So we decided, hey, let's take it out an extra 2 inches on each side, get the full width 100. And guess what? Now we're going to be able to store these pieces of plywood in there, store these long pieces of 2x4. So, you got to, where are we going to store Stokes basket? What is your longest pike pole and where is that going to be stored? So all these large pieces need to be put in first. So once again, sticking with the heavy duty rescue theme, is that now we have to wonder where are we putting our power units, where are we putting our reels, for us that still like reels and hydraulic electric power units as opposed to battery ones. With the battery ones now we got to consider how many drops we're putting in, what is going to be the drain on the fire truck when it's sitting in the bay, when it's plugged into the shoreline. How many batteries do you want to carry? So it just keeps going on and on and on. But having that equipment list is crucial. So we have an equipment list ready for each particular rig, just like I'm sure other, fire apparatus managers have also, is that they know what's supposed to go on the engine. The departments that scare me are the ones that go, yeah, we're just going to buy it and it's going to all fit on there. Is it how many fans are you carrying? Where are you going to plug those in? Are they gas power fans? Are they battery power fans? So, all these places need to have a spot. Up near you, Fort Washington, PA, they hired a consultant other than the apparatus consultant, being me, was for somebody to help them place equipment. So, they're using a CAD drawing, using the open door space and figuring out how tall a fan is, how wide it is, how big this is and how big that is, and then using a CAD drawing to put it in there. I'm not that good to, be able to put all those parts and pieces in, but, we definitely do a lot of research on the tools, the motors. Just like I said last week, we have this new motor for this hydraulic power unit, and we're like, well, it fits really well here, but let's take the cage off of it and then mount it directly to a shelf. And we lost 6 or 7 inches around it. Now we're more able to more tightly pack reels, move shelves up. So the equipment is crucial to understanding what you're going to put on that rig, and if you need to have that list ready and then understand the dimensions of each piece of equipment that you're going to put on.
And I think you really bring up a good point, with not only with the CAD drawings, but just in general when you're trying to place this equipment. And this is something that him because we meet with him once a year. Bill Adams, one of our authors, he has always spoken about those. The opening of the doors does not always match exactly. Like you may see on a drawing, that the compartment is X amount of inches wide, but you're not taking into account, for example, swing out doors. the space that's above and the space that's just to either side of where the hinges are. And then of course when you get into the roll up doors, that's a different space consideration as well. But those in the inside dimensions of the compartment don't always match the dimensions of the opening that you are looking to get into. So to place that equipment in. You mentioned that you have a list. Now I know that list is going to be specific for your department, and if you'd like to share that, that's great. But I was also curious about, a list of items. Let's pick the basic pieces that like the pumpers and the ladders. What is when we think about building these to do work, like these are going to be seeing fire duty. What are some of those items on your list that are absolute musts, not wants but needs?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you're right. I mean, the men and women of, the organization that I work for definitely do a lot of work. They have a lot of history of it. Um, you know, and we know our equipment set, our equipment cache that we need to carry. But once again, even though we have that cache, it's starting to expand a little bit. We don't have that much room in our pumpers. Obviously, we have to carry all our ALS equipment, our BLS equipment. But for us, it's all based around water. We'll start with the engine. So how do we take water in, and how do we deliver water out? And those pieces, if we're even taking water in, is that hey, am I going to put an Akron Revolution valve? Am I going to put an Akron Siamese? How can I take water in through the front? Do I need to draft? All these pieces need to go into that, and we have to get as much water as we can in the rig. So we're doing a 1500 GPM single stage pump, and we've had a couple big fires in the last couple of years, and we're proving that 1500 GPM pump, if you can get enough water in it, can supply much more than 1500 GPM. And we all know that even a single stage pump that with a diesel motor, it loves RPMs. So you can max that thing out, but you have to be able to get enough water into the rig. So if we're using a 4-inch intake, can we do a heavy hookup with 3-inch lines on the spuds of the hydrant? Can we take another 4-inch line in through the front intake? And once again, all that could be an adapter. That's how you thread it, whether you're using Storts or not. And then once again, it's just how much water we can take in. Then it's, what we can deliver out is all based on our hose bed and our hose lines. And we'll talk about that, later on when we talk about, equipment and some of the mounting stuff like that. But our basic equipment then is, we have to have our double males or double females. If we're using Storts, how are we going to, is it 5-inch Storts, 4-inch Storts, double male Storts? If you give these engine guys enough ideas, man, they'll come up with every adapter that they possibly need. And, I talked about it in an article not long ago when we talked specifically about equipment in the NFPA list. So, I'm getting ahead of myself, but, we talked about it at the thing. Here's the NFPA 1900, the new NFPA 1900 book, and it's pretty thick. But one of the things that they took out as the standard was the equipment list. So that's more or less now by the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, and you're based on your community. But they do have, I looked at it again today, is quite elaborate things that they think you should have. So for our rig, it's a compartment full of adapters, spanner wrench, hydrant wrenches, and stuff like that. Then you go to the compartment over the wheels, and that's where we got our pickhead axe, bolt cutters, shorter pike poles, sledgehammers, and stuff like that. The biggest thing that we've added recently for the engine companies is one of those small, DeWalt circular saws that has the high juice battery, and they use that to cut fence. They use that to cut chain. So it's that is something we've added in the last year or two, and now we're putting them on every rig. So every engine, every truck, every rescue squad gets one of these little saws, and it helps the operator be able to start this process before a truck gets there. But I watched them the other day. The chain had been painted on a spud, and it was so knotted up. and no matter how much they beat it with the hydrant wrenches, which I normally would do, it wouldn't come loose. So they break out this DeWalt saw, and man, just sawed right through that chain, and it was done and over with. They got the sput off, and they're ready to go. But obviously, all our fire extinguishers, the same, uh, dry chem and a water extinguisher. We have a small CO2 on there, even though we don't use it very much. But all our basic forcible entry tools, hydroram, all that stuff stays on there. You never know, we never know how long it's going to take to get a truck to your area. Even if you're in a highly densely populated area like mine, is that you want to be able to have that as an engine company, that ability to force a door. So all that kind of stuff goes on there. And then all the stuff that we have that deals with water kind of goes on there. So we can talk about trucks too. Did you want to go on
Yeah,
about?
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know what your thought plan there was. So
Well, no, yeah. I mean, like talk about, I mean, you hit on the engine company stuff. But I mean, like, depending on the company, depending on which type of ladder they get, whether it's a platform or a straight stick, there are still core stuff that if this is going to do work, we need this. We want this, but we need to have this, every time. So yeah, could you just go through some of that too for some of the truck company equipment?
yeah, so we've had a pretty good couple years buying ladder trucks. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we've bought almost 8 or 9 rigs here, and fully equipped them, and they all almost have an identical equipment cache. So our 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 trucks are based on forcible entry, venting, and ground ladders. So plenty of saws. We not jip them on saws. So they on the rear mount ladder trucks they have two circular saws, K12s. Um, then just two chainsaws, and then the little DeWalt saw, and then what like a tree saw. The biggest thing that we started doing was, one, we went with a type saw, so a manufacturer. So that manufacturer we started in 2017. We started with that manufacturer, and now that's the only manufacturer we've been buying. So we don't go, hey, manufacturer X has this new saw, because once again, now we're storing and inventorying parts for those saws. So you bring that saw into us damaged, whether it be a mechanical problem with it, or it got dropped, or just broke. Is that hey, we can go up on the shelf, grab a new pull start, grab a new air cleaner, grab a new trigger assembly, and put all that on. So even if you're not a busy department like I serve, even in a volunteer fire department, having that standardization is going to help you as you move along. Trying to get the same saw that's on the truck company or the heavy duty rescue is the same one that you got on the engine company, if you're carrying that saw, and not trying to go far from there. So all kinds of hooks, we have on those things, and I think we're going to talk about it, is we have those in very handy places. I have a couple pictures of that for us later on too, also, Chris. So
Okay.
and then ground ladders a mass. So we're running a minimum of 4-person ladder truck. So if you're running shorter than that, carrying over 380 feet of ground ladders might not be for you. So look, for 20 years, I drove a ladder truck with 3 people. So carrying ground ladders was based on me, the truck driver, because the officer and the firefighter would be going inside the building. So let me just give you a hint. Not many ground ladders were thrown. So especially when you have a hydraulic one on there. But now with, upstaffing of 4 people that are riding that rig, is that we just gave them every option humanly possible. So we take up the ladder tunnel. We take up space on the side of the rig, to put side stack or put flat, horizontal ladders on there, and just, give them every kind of option, 35s, 28s, 24s, 16s, 14s, for Fresno ladders. I have a picture of a little wall ladder that we use, for those split foyer homes. But just, if we could find more space, we would put more ground ladders on there. So, like I said, ours is based on, forcible entry, saws, and we got have fans on there too. We definitely use a battery powered fan, but the battery powered fan also has the ability to be used off a generator. So, a lot of people now are now taking the generators, so truck companies, heavy duty rescues, used to be the one that would have that 30, 25 kW generator. Now, ours are down to almost 10K and 6K. Just something to help us along the way. So we can be on that incident scene for a long time, and we can go through a series of batteries. When you run out of batteries, then what's supposed to happen? So you got to have, something to be able to run the fan, run your battery powered lights just in case, and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we base our stuff on.
There was something, a couple things I wanted to ask you about on there. And well, one is the question, one's more of a comment. When you talk about, standardizing on the saw company, for example,
Mhm.
not only does that, not only is there a familiarity now between all the truck companies and the municipality, but when we're going to talk a little bit about this in a little while, but when we talk about equipment mounts, now, all those mounts are going to be standardized as well, just about, because the trucks are probably going to be laid out in the same way. So there are other aspects of that standardization on that company for that. When I usually think of equipment mounting, I'm not always thinking about the saws. I'm usually thinking about the bolt cutters and the axes and the hooks and stuff like that, where those kinds of things you can almost make a jigsaw puzzle out of them in a compartment, depending on what. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just there are so many different places and different ways you can mount them. When we talk about the saws, those are tricky sometimes. When you get them into the compartment, sometimes they're on a tray that comes out, sometimes they're up above, and they're angled. But those mounts are critical to ensure that they don't fly around all over the place. So just one other thing with that. But I also wanted to ask you about the you mentioned a couple of times. You mentioned that small saw on the pumpers. And you also mentioned just now the battery powered fan. Are you looking to move a lot of the equipment over to? I mean, there's battery powered equipment coming out like crazy anymore, saws included. Are you looking to move over into that direction with any of that? And if so, how does that impact the mounting and the location of those things, and how you're organizing it? Because now you've got more batteries that you have to keep charged all the time. So just talk a little bit. If the answer is no, then that takes care of that. But I didn't know if you were, because there's so many departments that are moving toward the battery powered tools and the battery powered fans.
Yeah. So I mean, one is yeah. So we do have a series of battery stuff. I would say we're not sold on it wholeheartedly, just because it's the number of batteries that you have to go through, and then how often do the batteries go bad? I mean, we've had a scene light, that you can take into the building and you can hang on the door. But we go through batteries. It's insane amount of batteries. Just either the battery's bad, or hey, it's not programmed correctly, or and we're keeping 30 and 40 batteries here to keep companies in batteries. So I mean, I see that as a problem. I mean, for a big department, I think it's a big problem, because so we have, not only do we have the batteries, but now we're buying the backup battery that is not really a battery. It fits in the battery slot, but also has a plug on it. Just like our blowhard fans, and I'm sure there's other manufacturers out there that have the battery in the fan, but also have a cord on it, so you can plug it in. So when the battery runs out, it's not there to charge it, but helps run the saw. I mean, excuse me, the fan itself. So yeah, we do have a lot of battery power stuff, but we're not dependent on it.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that are just becoming solely dependent on battery stuff. I mean, the heavy duty rescue that we're doing, battery spreaders, battery rams, battery this, battery that. I'm like, yeah, but we've had a couple good wrecks where we're there for hours. These big tractor trailers, or or stuff like that, and now all these batteries are going to go dead. And then how quickly can we charge them in the rig off the 12-volt system, as opposed to having an hydraulic pump, reels, quoted, we have the whole truck's diesel tank to get through before we have to call somebody else. So we're definitely making a lot of use of them, but we're also making sure that we have that next thing in line. So when the battery goes dead, we don't have another battery to put in it, or the battery has a fault in it or anything like that, that we're not like, all right, we got to call the next truck. We got to call the next
Gotcha.
rescue squad, so we like to build a lot of redundancy into our systems to make sure that the men and women that are out there serving the public have plenty of choices to do. So did I
Okay.
answer that one? All right.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So we touched very briefly on NFPA 1900 and some of the differences with how it is treating equipment. As you showed, it is a very large book now.
Yep.
They've combined several apparatus standards into one. There are a lot of good reference guides in there, charts and such, but the equipment, what we considered the required equipment that the truck had to come either with at the time of delivery, or that you were basically promised to put on there. That equipment list is now, as I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, part of the appendix. And it is not. They are not saying. When I say they, the NFPA is not saying that to comply with this standard, you must have this piece of equipment on the truck. Could you talk a little bit about those changes? And we are going to get more into NFPA 1900 in future podcasts. But I just wanted to focus in right now on the equipment portion.
Sure. So, I don't know if we can see it, but this is Bill Peters' article from the Apparatus supplement in fire engineering. Good reference material for me, so I don't have to read that thick book. But the only thing that's left in the standard, that is, so obviously, as we read NFPA, there's a standard, shall and should are two keywords in there. But the thing that's in the body of the standard that's left in there are wheel chocks, traffic vests, traffic cones, illuminated traffic warning devices, a triangle kit, and a tire tool kit. Like I need that. But that's in the standard. So everything else, all the other stuff that we're used to seeing, like the double males, the double females, spanner wrenches, and stuff like that, are now in an Annex A. And as Bill said in here, and I'm reading it verbatim, so Bill gets the credit, not Ricky, as an equipment that should be carried on fire apparatus again. So it's recommended by the AHJ. So you go back there, and it's telling you base it on your community. And then if you go to the chart that's in the back, NFPA has in the annex tells you what they think you should be carrying, which is fine with me, man. I absolutely love that the AHJ has that. Look, what I carry in my fire department should have no bearing on what the LA City Fire Department's carrying on their fire truck. They're their own fire department. They're their own entity. They have their own problems. Look, all this kind of stuff was created after the Great Baltimore Fire, because Washington D.C. showed up on a rail car and gets there, and they were going to come save the day, and they couldn't hook to the fire hydrants. Well, guess what? It still happens today. So look, Washington D.C. and everybody, we've been to Baltimore on mutual aid, and guess what? We still can't fit the fire hydrants. So what's the sense of writing the stuff in a standard if we're not? So the AHJ, or what we have around here is called a Council of Governments. Is that, hey, here's our hydrant standard. Here's the adapters you should carry on the fire truck if you're going to run into Baltimore City, if you're going to run into Washington D.C., if you're going to run into PG or Montgomery or any of those places. These are the hydrant things you should, adapters you should have on your truck. So that's more important, I think, is that the region has a standard rather than a national standard like NFPA. So yep. So Bill wrote in here, and I'll read it again because I think it's good information. The rationale for this revision was twofold. First, this is an apparatus standard and not an equipment standard. And second, the minimum equipment list might not meet the service needs of the community that you're getting ready to serve. So once again, whatever's in NFPA might not serve LA, might not serve me, might not serve Mark in New York or Eddie in DC. So, we should have that. So Does that answer that question for you? Especially,
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, we in future podcasts we'll probably be delving into it a little deeper. I've got two before the end of the year. They're going to really delve into NFPA 1900 and what to expect once that does go into effect. Back to equipping the trucks, though. Now, I'm not necessarily looking for tips and tricks here, but talk about equipping a rig for deployment efficiency. Again, that's probably going to differ from department to department, municipality to municipality. But there are things that everyone can do, and we're talking about getting going to work. We want the stuff there. Ready to go and within easy reach. So, what could you just comment a little bit on setting it up for equipment deployment efficiency?
So, I mean, obviously, the FDMY sets the standard on this. I mean, it's I look at them, and this is where I kind of watched it learn from Pete Lund from New York City. A great friend of mine and a founder of Traditions Training with me. Is that going up and riding that rescue is that how the back of the rescue was set up, and this can go for an engine or a truck. We're just using the rescue as a standard. Is they had riding positions before riding positions were cool. So you had your forcible entry person, your OV, your forcible entry person, your roof guy, and when you get in the back, when I got in the back of the rescue 2 for the very first time, all that equipment was right there, not tucked away in a compartment, or the 6-foot hook was here. Then you had to go around and get the saw here. And then you had to get your flashlight here. They were basing how they designed the apparatus and laid the equipment out on how they were going to function on their fire ground. Now that's great for New York City. So how they set it up works for them flawlessly. So then it was now taking it back to, to Fairfax, or taking it back to, the department I work at now, and go, hey, look, let's move all this equipment around. When you sit down, you have a place to put your PPE. You have a place for your SCBA, preferably in your seat and not outside of the fire truck in another compartment. So I'm not a clean cab guy. So there's plenty of other stuff to do before we start taking equipment out. And, that's almost as bad as the fog nozzle, smoothbore nozzle, argument. But, I would say here in the Northeast and on the East Coast is that how quickly we want to get out of the rig and get to work is how we design apparatus and how we lay our equipment out. The seconds that we save there could mean life or death. It sounds like I'm crying wolf and saying that, there's blood in the streets and blah, blah, blah. But, I personally have seen the effectiveness of 1, riding assignments, 2, apparatus layouts, and 3, equipment layouts, save people's lives. And that all comes back to 1, trained firefighters. And I know we're talking about fire trucks, but fire trucks, the great thing. But if we don't have trained and capable firefighters riding them, then all this stuff that that I do is for naught. Nothing's going to happen. So we lay that stuff out, and now on top of all that, we have to deal with ergonomics. Firefighters all aren't 6'1" and 180 pounds and 200 pounds. We have firefighters from vertically challenged to really tall and everything in between. So making that fire apparatus work for them is important. And we got a couple pictures here in a little bit, but for us, I know the new motor standard is going to crush me because it's going to make me get 13-inch frame rails. But we were doing 10-inch frame rails, pretty standard for the last 5 to 6 years. And once again, that made the floor height lower in the cab. So, you could reach equipment inside the cab easier without having to step up with an SCBA. And then where we mount that Halligan axe, where we mount that hydroram, where we mount that water can, where we mount the 6-foot hook is also is less movement, less up and down in full SCBA and PPE, and readily available. So we don't have to open up 2 and 3 compartments to find what we needed to do. And, every manufacturer does this. They're not going to say, hey, that's what you should do. It's up to you writing specifications, you listening to the people that ride the fire truck, as opposed to the person that just sits behind a desk and, or is the a chief or that hasn't ridden a fire truck in a long time, I feel like I have my fingers on the pulse of how they operate. But Ricky's not pulling hose lines. Ricky's not carrying the water can, the 6 foot hook anymore. If there's some other way they want to do it, then I'm more than happy to listen to it as long as it fits into the fire truck design. And any manufacturer now is going to charge us thousands upon thousands of dollars to do um, a special compartment or a special mounting or anything like that because it's outside the norm and it's going to slow down production, and nobody wants to slow down production anymore. So it's a big deal. So Chris, I thought we had another part of that, but
Um,
I know it's hard to keep track of me talking. So
no, well, I think one of the things that you bring up it's almost not setting it up for deployment efficiency so much, and where you're mounting things. It's more along the lines of organizing the truck properly so that the people who are doing those specific tasks that you mentioned have the stuff ready to go, right, not necessarily right in front of them, but in the same place on every truck, so that you're not walking from one side to get one piece of equipment to go back around to the other side to get another piece of equipment that you need to do, that you need to complete the tasks that you're going to be completing on the fire ground.
I mean, look, Chris, I mean, it's simple. So look, one of my favorite fire companies in the world, and I love these people dearly, is the Intercourse Fire Company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I mean, oh my God, the greatest people I've ever met in my life. Just, you know, just great people. But so I mean, this is a fire department. I mean, what are they running? 200 calls a year? You know, I'm sure it's more than that. But I mean, very slow fire department. But they also, when you get in the back of their rig, the fire truck is laid out in seating assignments and what that seat is supposed to do. So seat one is the line person. Well, we have everything ready for them right there. Organization, just like you said, seat two, seat three, seat four. And if they can do it in a slow fire department, no disrespect to them being slow. I mean, nobody wants to see fire trucks zooming up and down through Intercourse, Pennsylvania when you're trying to enjoy a day at the Amish market. But it's if they can do it, it shows that it can be done. I mean, you just can't go into the fire service today and then get 4 and 5 men and women on the rig, and the officer turn around and go, "You do this, you do this, you do this," and then where are they going to get their equipment from? Where what job did they get? So that it's crucial to look at how you're going to lay that rig out and how your fire department functions. And if like with an engine, is it rural? Is it urban? Is it suburban? How you set that rig up and is important. I mean, it really is.
Now, we've talked a little bit about how we're setting it up for current use. But I mean, I'm sure you've read the same things that I read. There's a lot of, and when we think about how long we're often keeping, now maybe not for your current department, but some of the volunteer departments out there, they're keeping their trucks for 20, maybe 25 years sometimes. And the things that I see all the time is make sure you map out some space, some compartment space for future expansion, or just picking up new pieces of equipment along the way. When you're designing the rig, how do you have any suggestions on how to do that? I mean, I think we'd have a hard time selling it to the town council if this thing backs in and there's an entirely empty compartment that's got nothing in it. They're going to kind of wonder why we did what we did. So is it just a matter of trying to keep a section of a compartment open, for that future expansion? I'm guessing you probably read the same stuff I do with those recommendations. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I wrote some of it, Chris. So, is it? I mean, it's for everything's for future expansion. For us with our HDRs and with our ladder trucks, we put a plug. So it's like a house plug. So it has the 2 prongs in the ground, and we also have USB on it, and we put one in every compartment. and it's powered by the shoreline. And the tiller truck has God knows how many compartments on it, but every one of them has a plug in it, and it's up high and it's away. But we never know, hey, what's going to come down the pike? What's going to be the newest battery powered fan? They're going to be battery powered, struts. Who knows what's going to come next? So we got to have a compartment ready for it. It takes a lot more carving and tearing up a fire truck to run something new than to already have it there. And so just like we talked about earlier with the heavy duty rescue is saving space. So we're going to take the cage off this hydraulic pump, tuck it up even farther. We're able to move core wheels up, then remove shelves up, and that's going to save us room. And do we have something to fill that space? No, but we don't know what the battery powered tool is going to look like 10 years from now or 15 years from now. And hey, look, we'll tell the county council, the city council, you give me more money, I'll buy more equipment. But this is what we carried on our last truck. We've identified it. This is our operational need, but we have space to grow as a company. So just like you said, look, I imagine keeping fire trucks. I don't care if it's FDNY, Washington D.C., LA, myself, anybody. We're going to keep trucks for a lot longer. My chosen manufacturer, I was there last week and had a lot of conversations about production, and nobody sees an end to this production crisis. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. So you're going to be keeping that truck longer because you can't get a new one. So, we got a 15-year life on a fire truck or a 20-year life on a fire truck. Well, it'll take 4 to 5 years to build it. And then we're cutting into the life of the next truck. So it's pretty important to have all that space ready to go. And once again, you don't have to fill every inch. I giggle and laugh at my hometown, Ocean City, Maryland. Their fire trucks, I don't even think you could fit another screwdriver on that thing. Is that they have that thing packed so well. And, there's no room for expansion. And like you said, it's who knows what Hamatro is going to come out with next. Who knows what Firehooks is going to come out with next. Who knows what any of these fan companies are going to come out with next. And we're going to need that space to be able to put the new thing in there. So.
Okay. This is kind of the show and tell portion of this. And I was wondering, I wanted you to talk about some of the equipment mounting options that you've seen that are kind of innovative and, that people could borrow from, as they're getting ready to lay out the equipment on their next rig.
Look, I mean, it's, I have a great team. I have a great gentleman by the name of Darren Tomlinson that, man, this guy is a whiz with plastic welding. But we learned that from Loudoun County, Virginia. I mean, we went out and saw what they were doing and we're like, oh my God, we got to do that. Now look, they're like Orange County Chopper back in the day. They're able to fabricate that. We're still hand cutting it and everything like that. But let me know when you see this pull-out board, Chris, so we can make sure we got it. So
okay.
Do we see it? Let's see here. You see it?
Yep.
Okay.
There it is.
So, in the words of First Do Apparatus Solutions, my buddy Doug Inslee, he loves pegboard. So this is a pegboard in a heavy duty rescue. You can see it already has pre-cut holes in it. For us, we don't like this, but I mean, there's a lot of departments that use this, and we're able to move stuff around inside the compartment. But I always found that I always get one bolt through, and then the next one I got to drill a hole. So I only got to drill one hole instead of two. But once again, this, like you said about the Ouija board and getting everything in there, this compartment, it looks really great now, but it took us, a day or half a day to figure all this out. And then we got to figure out what we're going to put on the other side. I do not have a picture of that in this presentation, but on the back side, now we have to worry about the bolts coming through from the other side of what we're going to put on the back side of that. So we prefer to use a different type of mounting system, which, once again, it doesn't matter. I mean, Eddie Rice in Washington, D.C., they're still using plywood, highly varnished plywood. which they mount in there. They mount all their equipment. If they change, they just take the piece of plywood out, put a new one piece in. So here, here, like we talked about with those saws, Chris, is one, we had the manufacturer put in a slide out tilt down tray, like you were talking about, and I have a picture of that slid down here in a little bit. But everything you see here is all mounts made in house with using plastic. So really big, a lot of manufacturers, aftermarket manufacturers, not the manufacturers themselves, are starting to use a lot of this plastic. It's a little easier to use than aluminum. I don't know about cheaper some days, but you can make these custom brackets for that. There's a lot of those brackets that are made, by manufacturers such as Zyco, Pack. Please fill in the blank for that company if I forgot it. But once again, you have to make sure it fits for you. These were all custom made because that's how we wanted the slants to fit all the equipment. So that what kind of works for us. So here's another example of that. This is the mounting system we like to use. We like to use the Pack Track. That is the silver slotted stuff that you see in that picture. And all their mounts that they produce all have expansion joints, and you're able to move that stuff. And the big thing that we like about it is that we're only going to drill into the fire truck one time. So all that silver back there is all removable. So you undo some screws, I can take that out, put new stuff in, and I can drill more holes in it. So I'm not drilling holes into my fire truck, which is absolutely hate doing. So, but you can see down here at the bottom, holding all the scoop shovels and the salvage buckets is all just our regular plastic. So this is our ladder bank. As you can see, we challenged our manufacturer to use up every inch of space back there. When we got there, I think we only had, that's a 45, a 35, and two 16s or 14s. So we only had like three of the four ladders in there, and we're like, oh look, here, let's take a tape measure. Let's figure out what we can do here. Which is, every fire apparatus manufacturer's nightmare is to have a customer with a tape measure up there, trying to figure out what space he can use. But we used every bit of space that we possibly could there.
Hey, go ahead. Talk about that option you just mentioned on social media the other day for ladders.
So if you go to my social media, Glendale, California has had a rig up at the manufacturer. And I go to the back, and oh my God, it is absolutely gorgeous. It's all wooden ladders. Ricky doesn't want to throw them, the wooden ladders, or care for them. But they're just so beautiful. The ladders are beautiful. But they put a roller system in there, and there is some reason, and I knew you were going to ask this question today, and I was going to call my salesperson because that's what I wanted to do on this truck that you're seeing now. I said, hey, I want to put the rollers in there. It'll help me. The firefighters get, because regardless of manufacturer that you use, getting aluminum ladders out of an aluminum storage bin, even if you put the poly on there, there's still a challenge to get out. They get stuck and everything like that. And what they did with this truck that you're talking about from Glendale, California, is the ladder storage is a little bit more spaced out. There's rollers the whole length of the ladder channel, and now the ladder comes out. I'm literally pulling the ladder out with one finger, and it slides right out. And there was a reason why they wouldn't let me do this, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But when I find out, I'll post it on social media because today I've had 3 phone calls about, hey, I want to do that, and I'm like, there's a reason why we can't, and I can't remember what it is. So I probably should have got that answer before I posted it on social media. Look, if you're going to do wooden ladders, I can tell you what, it's pretty dang cool option. Like I said, I think you guys reposted on fire apparatus and emergency equipment. But it's amazing how easy those ladders come out. So these are a little bit tougher. And, obviously we know wooden ladders are more heavy than aluminum. So it makes me wonder why we can't do it here, but I'd hate to be the person that has to replace the roller when the roller goes bad. Sure. But man, when it's working right, it's going to work great. So once again, just to show you making use of all your space. Now, in a ladder bank, we probably don't need to worry about future expansion, so we're gonna max that thing out. So here's once again, making use of that space, slide out tilt downs. Normally, even in our own rig, we've ordered it with one too many trays before. Nothing, once again, to get upset about. Having a tray designed by your manufacturer is much better than trying to get an aftermarket tray in or having someone fabricate it. So even on this, this rig here on our tillers, we had a tray that we ended up having to take out just for equipment spacing, even though we had it planned out right. And once again, it's an expensive tray, but it's good to have that stuff laying around, because guess what? We used it on an HDR, or heavy duty rescue. We cut the tray down and put it in that rig, and we had it spare there. So once again, you see here the custom saw mounts, the fans going in there, all with the plastic. Whoops, sorry. Here's that middle slide out tray. Once again, we fit as much as we possibly could on there, but you see we've left space. So we tucked things over. We figured out, how big the head was on the sledgehammer, got the water key in there. And once again, this is a very deep shelf. So everything has to be reachable. We like to say, if you roll that tray all the way out, trying to reach up and trying to even get that axe out, is that you can get the handle off, the pack handle, but if you put something like that towards the head, you're not going to be able to get it out. So it has to be able to slide in and, the clamp down. So that's why you see the same thing with the big wrench there. Once again, the big monkey wrench there is that it's in a box and just one handle on there. So once again, thinking about your firefighters, having the firefighters come out, lay it out, and, so they can figure out how they're going to get it out without having to do a bunch of handles. So, if we did a bunch of, these yellow handles to hold everything down, it's not quickly getting off and it's not quickly getting back on. This is that little ladder that we were talking about that we use for our split foyers, for those windows. Once again, guess what? We found a space. So it's on the truck. We you have to check with your manufacturer. Will it fit there? Will the turntable get in the way? Will the hydraulic lines hit it? So once again, you have to, you can do this after the truck gets back, but it's always good to at least pose the question to your manufacturer. Once again, we think it's a great space, maybe till the turntable starts to turn, then things get in the way. Oops, sorry about that. This is the inside of our cab. Once again, there is an NFPA standard. I'm pretty sure it's in the new standard. I have not read the entire standard, but having loose equipment inside the cab is a big no-no. So the mount that the howling bar and the axe is an NFPA approved G-force mount. So the big part about that is, guess what? It has to be in the mount and the strap has to be on it to pass NFPA. The Hydram and the K-tool there, custom made box, but it has you can't see it really because of the flashlight strap, but there's a strap covering all that once again is an NFPA approved strap from Zyco. So once again, all this stuff is ergonomic because I can reach it all from the ground. But once again, I have firefighters riding in there. My God, we just had another bad apparatus accident up, or in the Baltimore, Washington area last night. Thank goodness nobody was hurt. But, these apparatus crashes, the one in West Virginia that we just had, horrific accident. If this stuff is flying around inside the cab, we're going to hurt and kill firefighters. So as much as we're focused on the operational readiness and everything, is that we have to also be focused on the safety of our firefighters. So, making sure that all that stuff is mounted correctly, the mount meets the NFPA requirements, crucial. This is that portion that we were talking about, having stuff ready to go, is that we don't have to open up a compartment. The 6-foot hook's mounted on the outside. Once again, FDNY has been doing this for decades. All of us were just afraid to drill into paint, like it's a big deal or something. And this is our front bumper. Here is 10 inches of space that wasn't being used. And now we have the officer has a choice of tools when he gets out of the rig. He can take his regular Halligan bar, he can take a Lincoln bar, or he can take a 6-foot hook. And all that's right there. He doesn't have to open a compartment. He's not fighting with the person in the riding behind him to get into a compartment. All his tools are right there, ready to go. All it takes is a little maintenance, from if they're stored out in the weather. So this is just another picture of just another compartment. You can see slide out, tilt down. We have 12-volt power in there. It comes from the ceiling. We have a pigtail on there so you can slide the tray up and back. But once again, having that 12-volt drop in there from the manufacturer is crucial. And then we have a block of 12-volt block in there so we can add on if we want to add another row of lights, another row of chargers, or anything. So we have 5 or 6 open spots on that block there. So always thinking about the next expansion for your apparatus. And then here's that part about ergonomics. Behind those red covers there is this thing called hose. And if you're an engine company, getting hose off is important. Supply line, attack line, whatever it is. And you want to be able to get that off. And there's no way, shape, or form that I want to be crawling up there to get that. Regardless of how much water you want to carry or anything like that, you can design the rig to make it firefighter friendly. It takes engineering and it costs money. So look, to get some of the stuff that we want. So here's a prime example here is that here's the old rig on the right with the hose bed that you got standard from your manufacturer. And this is their new rig. And you can see that how much lower the hose bed is. Once again, forethought, understanding water tank size. Look, when the pumper on the right was built, you had a choice. You can get a 500-gallon tank, you can get a 750 tank, you can get a 1,000-gallon tank. Now the hose tank manufacturers will build you the hose tank of any size you want. It can be an odd number. Ours are 511, 712. So you can, if it fits your operational need, they'll make the tank the size that you want. So you can get the depth that you need, the hose bed height that you need, and also the functionality of what size water, how much water you want to carry based on your community. This is ours. Ours are 56 inches from the ground to the bottom of the hose bed. It works really well for our attack lines. Once again, as you add more hose and the shorter the fire truck is, the higher the hose gets in the back. So if we're trying to get the layout section on the 3-inch, trying to get the layout section on the 5-inch, you probably need to have a rope hose tool, a strap or something to get that off. If you make your wheelbase longer, you can get a longer hose bed and all that hose bed height will come down, the top of the hose. So with the 300 and the 400, the 300 and the 250 that are on the right side of the fire truck there that you see with the red, white, and blue stripe, if the hose bed depth was longer, then of course that overall height's going to come down. But once again, how much of a shoulder load do you really want to carry, depending on the average height of your firefighter? If you get a vertically challenged firefighter and you've got one that is 100 inches long, that's not going to work too well. They're going to be tripping over that stuff left and right. So Chris, I stopped sharing there, and I knew pictures always help. So
absolutely. Well, we're just about to the end of our podcast today. Sure. Ricky, do you have any general comments or just any final thoughts on equipping a truck to do work that we can leave the listeners or viewers with?
Yeah, look, I can remember being a younger firefighter and going outside my world. So I lived on the Eastern Shore of Maryland for almost 16 years of my life. I didn't even know there was something west of the Chesapeake Bay. I didn't even know there was even fire departments there. So getting out, looking what other people are doing, and you can make it work for your organization. we go back to Intercourse, Pennsylvania. Look, they're not running a fire every month. They're not running a fire every 2 months, but they're taking ideas that they see or listening to people. Look, the first person outside of the FDNY that wanted to mount a 6-foot hook on the outside of the fire truck, I can only imagine the beatdown that they took. Is that, we're not the FDNY. Yeah, you're not running the call volume that they are, but you're still running a house fire. You're still running an apartment fire. The object is to get the equipment off quickly. And listening to your firefighters. I would say that I'm sure that as much as I listen to them and try to incorporate all their ideas and stuff like that, is that there has to be a time that I just have to say no. Um, but it isn't because of, hey, I don't like your idea. Is that, hey, it doesn't fit into our standardization. It doesn't fit into the design of the fire truck, or the design is going to cost us so much money. It's going to make the rig so unique that it's not worth the money that we're going to spend. But I spend a lot of time going to these kitchen firehouses and listen to these firefighters and listen to them complain about stuff, and that's good. And a lot of times they have a lot of good ideas for me to take back. There's a better way to do this, a better way to do that. But I can guarantee you that on our rigs, the people that actually help me mount all this equipment are firefighters in the field. So they have their say on those rigs. So if you design a fire truck void of input from your operational people, then it's gonna be terrible. I mean, because those people that are that you disregarded or did not include into your committee, they're stuck with that fire truck for 20 years if they stick with that fire department. If they're going to live the life of that organization. So I mean, getting younger people involved in committees, getting younger people involved in equipment layouts, you're setting yourself up for the next round. The succession plan from when us old guys, are going to go out of the business, and you don't have anybody prepared to step up into that. So I've prepared my next group that if I ever retire, as people say, is that who's going to do it next after me? He's going to have the idea, he's going to have the concept, he's going to have the understanding. Is that we're training that group, and then as we take our station representatives out, they're learning how to build fire trucks, not as in depth as my team or me, but they're getting a taste of it. They're starting to understand it and what goes into it all. And then, so when they, if they get to be a major player designer, or even for the equipment or the apparatus, is that they have some kind of idea what to do rather than just coming in blind and listening to the salesman. And, the salesman's going to sell them whatever they can. So.
All righty, Ricky. Well, thank you very much again for joining me today. If you've listened to this or watched it and you have some questions that have come up that you need Ricky to answer, let me know. I'll get him the questions. I'm sure that he is going to be on some of these podcasts moving forward, so we can always answer them for you at that point as well. But let me know at chris.mcloone, MCLOONE, at clarionevents.com. Send them to me. I'll get them over to Ricky. We'll get them answered for you. Also, if you have a topic that you'd like to see or like to hear covered, let us know. Again, chris.mcloone at clarionevents.com. If you've got a topic that you'd like to see covered that's apparatus or equipment related, we can go out and find the subject matter expert to get that topic addressed. So again, Ricky, thank you very much. This has been Chris McClune with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Have a good one and stay safe.